when I speak about leadership, right, people oftentimes put a stereotype on it, right? You hold some type of title, like you hold some type of, something like that. And really that's the furthest from the truth, especially when it comes to the most important job that you have, which is raising, the people in your house, leading them to the feet of Jesus. And I think that people, especially men do not understand the importance of a dinner table.
I agree.
Welcome to Real Man Talk, discussing the tough issues facing men and their families every day. Here's Anthony Curnutt and Carla Sau.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Real Men Talk. Today, I've got the most interesting man alive on the podcast, Clay Lee. I'm so excited for you guys to hear this conversation. I've been excited for this conversation since we first talked on the phone. And so just a little bit about Clay. Clay is from Lewisville, Texas, the Highland Village area, which is about 20 minutes north of Dallas. He's married with 3 kids. He works for Richardson Fire Department. He's captain of the Special Operations Station. He's the medic for the police department SWAT team. He's a rescue squad officer on Texas Task Force 2. And that is not even the best thing about him. He loves Jesus and he strives to follow him. I'm telling you guys, I cannot wait for you guys to meet him. Clay, what is going on, man?
What's happening? I'm honored to be here.
Man, I'm honored to have you on. And ever since we talked on the phone a few days ago, I've been looking forward to this conversation. And so just, I love having people on from different areas, from different fields, it gives that sense of everybody's got a story, right? Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter, right? You can be the most interesting man alive, or you can be some, podunk kid from Southeast Missouri. It doesn't matter. Everybody's got a story, right? And so, man, it is so exciting to have you on. And I am excited for these guys to hear you. So we're gonna dive right into this because I want to be time sensitive at the same time. Okay. And so my favorite question, and I warned you it was coming. My favorite question. Tell us your story.
Okay, will do. Well, first, I would like everyone to know that I do not feel like I'm an authority on biblical masculinity. For starters, I don't even like to watch sports. I love to play sports. I'll go outside and I'll play any sport with you, but I can't even stand watching them. So my story, my wife and I, we got married about 20 years ago. She's an amazing woman. She's part Lebanese, which means she has about 1,000 cousins, and is extremely passionate. So she, if you've seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, I might be the head of the household, but she is a neck, and she will turn my head whichever way she pleases. That's the way it works.
I understand that.
But she loves Jesus. She's one of the big reasons that my faith is where it is. She's a teacher at the school that our kids go to. So we have a hybrid model school. Our kids go to a hybrid model school. So they do 2 days at school, 2 days at home. And so then Friday's electives day. So she gets to teach there. So they have the exact same schedule. She's home when they're home and she's at school when they're at school. So they get a lot of time together. She gets a lot of time to pour into them. We just have a lot of great conversations at the house. It's a classical Christian school, so we get a lot of talks about, Christian history and just all the different things about life that come up. We get to talk about at the house together, which is pretty cool. And so with my schedule, awesome. I work 48-96, so I'm work 2 days, off 4 days. So I'm home a lot of those days. Most of the time I'm just getting in the way. But I get to be involved in those conversations, and so that's cool. My wife does not teach science, though. When it comes to science, man, we got to change teachers on that one.
Yeah, my wife's a teacher too. Her thing is history, right? She does not teach history.
So I got 3 kids. My daughter's 16, and my 2 boys are 14 and 11. All 3 of them are a freaking blast to hang out with. We have tons of fun together. My daughter's into soccer. Boys are involved with swimming, jiu-jitsu. We love camping, rock climbing, basically anything outdoors, playing cards, all the jazz. We have a lot of fun. One cool thing is we're trying to get all three of our kids to all 50 states. So this summer we're going on a 3-week road trip to Washington and Oregon, and that will complete 49 states. So we drive the whole time, we camp the whole time in a tent, except for Alaska. I tried to talk my wife into it. She said, I'm not camping in the Yukon. And I was like, that's fair. I get it. I was a little nervous about camping in the Yukon as well. So
is Alaska the only one you won't be?
No, so we did do Alaska, but we took a cruise there,
I got you.
Yeah. We did a whole, it was a blast. We made it to the Arctic Circle, got a picture. We drove 4 hours to the Arctic Circle, took a picture, drove 4 hours back, so that was important.
Right. I get it.
And so next year is our Hawaii trip. So that would complete all 50 states.
Cool.
With work, I started in Richardson in 2006. I got blessed to start at Station 4, which is our special ops station. So currently, captain there. We got an amazing crew right now. It's a different type of station because it's a double company house, and Richardson, we do things a little weird. So there's 2 captains at the same station. So a lot of times people have that power battle. But the captain that I co-captain with, he's like a brother. Neither one of us are trying to measure our body parts. It's all good. Whatever he wants. If he's passionate about it, cool. If I'm passionate about it, then he moves out. So it's all good. So we got a bunch of young guys in there. We're getting them trained up. They're doing amazing. They're all massive. And I joke that we just need to have a protein trough in the kitchen, at mealtime. I got on the SWAT team as a medic in 2011, I think. I always get that year wrong. And we stay pretty busy. Last year we had 19 call outs. So our role on the team is medic, but we take a lot of auxiliary responsibilities as well. So like one of our guys is a drone pilot. On the actual call, we'll jump out, grab gas and water, shut those off. We'll do the robot. Anyway, we have a lot of different just auxiliary assignments other than just being a medic there. But
so when you say that, you're talking about a live SWAT situation, right? Where SWAT is called in for whatever reason. And you guys are in the middle of it, not only being medics, but flying drones and shutting off, utilities. And that's awesome.
Yeah. So we're in the stack with them. We're making entries with them. And it's a blast. So that's an interesting part of the job because it's totally different than being a firefighter, even on an ambulance. It's just totally different. It's a different mindset. It's a different language. They're always talking about acronyms and, their 10-4, all their signature jokes and blah, blah, blah. Signature 79. And like, I don't even know what that is. So
yeah, me either. So,
right. So, and then my third thing is rescue squad officer on our Texas task force team. It's a state resource that gets called up if the county judge calls for a disaster declaration, then they'll send the request to the state. State will send us out, whether it's flooding or hurricanes or tornado or whatever it is that happens. We'll go out and do search and rescue on that kind of stuff. So
I would imagine that this year you've been pretty busy with that.
So the last couple of years we've been busy with flooding. It's been interesting. So we have water squads, and so I'm on the flood boat team. We get attached to the swiftwater teams. But yeah, the last 2 years we've had a lot of flood deployments. So it's been fun. So that's kind of that's who I am in a nutshell. I'm involved with a organization called SODER. So it's an organization started by a pediatric cardiac ICU doctor in Fort Worth. I always have trouble stringing all those words together.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So he started a company in I don't know, roughly 18 years ago, and he wanted to start training doctors in Eastern Europe. So he started a LLC and got the thing going, and he quickly learned that there's a lot of red tape with training doctors. So he transitioned to teaching first responders. And so for the first 8 years, he went to Albania. And so he started recruiting firefighters from around the Metroplex, around the country, and was hitting Albania doing some mission work. So he would train the firefighters there, and while they were there training, he would spread the gospel.
That's awesome.
And so about 8 years ago, so he did that, like I said, he did that for around 8 years. His name is Ryan Meyer. And about 8 years ago, he transitioned to Colombia. So now we've been going to Bogota, Colombia. That's where we fly into. And we partnered up with a church named El Rio. So this church, man, so last year was, or I guess 2 years ago was my first year to get to go. And I was baffled by, I mean, I was just in awe of the design that has been made. So we get partnered up. There's about 8 of us, 10 of us that go fly into Colombia, and we meet up with El Rio, pastor there. His name's Andreas Vargas. And we partner up with them. We get on a charter bus, and El Rio gets about 50 volunteers. And then we drive to whatever part of the country that we're going to stay that week. So it could be 2 hours away. It could be 7 hours away, whatever. We get on a charter bus and we head out there. And so we're there. For them, it's like a firefighter convention. It's what we like. And in the States, it would feel like a firefighter convention. So it's held in a particular city, but then cities from all over the country will come and send their guys to this training. Right. And so we get there, we start doing the training, and then while we're doing it, it's like a Trojan horse. When we get there, then all the El Rio volunteers come out, and they're like the Greeks, coming into Troy. And so we get there, we start doing the training, and El Rio, the volunteers, they do all of the meals for all of the people. They stay there the whole time. It's 100 degrees, 97% humidity. I mean, and the ladies are dancing in the kitchen. It's just an amazing sight to see. And so one of the cool things is, like, I've heard several firefighters talk about how they've never, because their big question is always, why are we there? Right. And our go-to response is, man, we're here because we love Jesus and we love you, and that's kind of what we just lead off with. Yeah. And then they get loved on. So, like, a lot of times they'll do training with the other people will come to the country and train with them. And they'll get treated like trash. They get treated like they're subordinate, but less than, they get treated like they're less than, like they're dumb or whatever. And we just take a different approach. We're like, because, man, I tell you what, those guys are clever. They come up with, they don't have the resources that other places do, and they get the job done. Yeah. They use their hats. They use their hat bills for seat collars. They do things very creative. But anyway, so we don't talk down to them. We partner up with them and we love on them. And so many times we've heard those guys just say, man, I've never been loved on before. This is different, and why are y'all so different? And so then the entire week, each night we'll do like a fire night, campfire night, and we teach them how to smoke, how to make s'mores, because they've never seen that before. And so we'll do like a devotional that night, or someone will share their testimony. And it's just a really, really neat deal. And so then it's nice because El Rio is in country. Right. And so they can stay in touch with those guys and provide, whatever resources, or, they can continue the journey. Whereas we just kind of jump in, jump out, and we move on. So,
right. Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so that's Soder. What else? Yeah, man. So that's kind of my story.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, that's again, the most interesting man alive. But man, you're like I don't even know, like a walking action figure or something. You know what I mean?
Well, it's far from it, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And but let me ask you this. Let's transition into this a little bit. So you do all this stuff, right? And you're still able to spend time with your family, right? Spend time with your kids, right?
Yeah.
Which I think you would agree with me is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And able to you love Jesus, right? So I have been around a lot of first responders, firefighters, police officers, stuff like that. And typically there is a certain persona around them that has nothing to do with Jesus, right?
Right.
Okay. So how do you maintain your relationship with Christ and still live in this atmosphere?
That's a great question. So, I would tell you that I suck at it. So, like for me, if you're going to record my conversations at work every day and listen to them, you would be like, man, that guy is not for Jesus. It's just not part of my language. It needs to be, but it's not. But one thing that I feel like I do that I focus on is my behaviors. So I'm making sure that I am compassionate towards others, or I'm making sure that that person feels loved, or that person feels served. I feel like one of the gifts I have is reading people and reading people's personalities, and just kind of being in tune with what they might be experiencing, and so I often am able to listen to that and help with that. I don't know a better way to explain that, but so I don't know. I just feel, and I've always been that way. I'm not a sales guy. I never will be a sales guy. You either want to buy this pen or you don't. I don't care,
Right.
But I do know how to react. I know how to behave. I know that if work needs to be done, man, let's go do it. If it's sucky work, let's go do the sucky work, and then we'll be done. We're going to do it together. We're going to have a good time doing it, and then we can move on. So I don't know. I just see a lot of. I see for me personally, and I'm not even saying it's right or wrong or indifferent, but just for me, my behavior is the way that I share the gospel.
Right.
So,
which makes sense.
Yeah, I don't feel edgy, and they talk about it at church a lot. Like, you don't have to be a pastor to share the gospel, and I definitely understand that. But man, I'm just kind of a simple-minded person. Like, I'm not super what's the word, like trying to unpack everything and unlayer everything, and I just don't have the bandwidth for that in my brain, So, yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting. So, I had a question not too long ago. So I do coaching and stuff for men and all this stuff. And I remember I asked somebody, a mentor of mine, I said, hey, how do I reach the everyday guys? Right. They're the hardest ones to reach.
Yeah,
they are absolutely the hardest ones, right? The ones that every one of us, and I'm included in that, right? Every one of us are, you suck it up and you deal with it. Doesn't matter what it is,
right?
You get the job done, right? It's just part of being a man, right? You know what I mean? When you're at work, you're doing, sometimes you have subpar tools to do a professional job, and what do? You make it work, right? That's the way we get through life, right? Well, at the time I had owned my own business, and I was driving dump trucks and doing the excavate and stuff like that, and I remember asking that question, and then something happened, and I ended up having to shut down my business. Right, I had to go to work. A friend of mine owns a large construction company, and he just put my skill set to use. Right, I can pretty much drive anything with tracks or wheels. It doesn't matter what it is. Right, and so that's what we did. And then it hit me one day. Because I had been praying about how do I reach the people, the everyday guys. Well, God put me right smack dab in the middle of these everyday guys.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I noticed that influences them the most is when I'm the hardest worker there, right? When I'm the one that's picking up all the slack, right?
Yeah.
When I'm and still have a positive attitude, right? It's not when I'm sitting in the corner preaching Jesus to all of them, right? It's,
Correct.
and it's just what you were talking about.
Yeah.
My actions, I will be the hardest worker there, right? Not only because I want to influence the guys there, but it's biblical, right? Everything you do for Jesus, right?
Yeah.
And I want to be able to, when those, and this is what will happen, because I've had it happen before. Something bad will happen, right? And I'm sure you've experienced this. Something bad will happen in their lives. You know who's the first person they're going to go to? They're going to go to you, right? They're going to go to me, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I know there's something different about you. I need you to be praying for me, right? And
Yeah.
it's those opportunities that you have the biggest opportunity to preach the gospel, to show the gospel to them, right?
Yeah.
Not just preach it, show them the gospel.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, so dude, you're spot on. You know what I mean? I think you're right on. And that's cool because, they're kind of a different breed, right? So since, a lot of the audience knows, and I had told you about it, about the cast and burdens, the first responder, so I've been trying to work my way into, I go to church with a bunch of them, stuff like that, but I've been trying to work my way in there. They're a different breed.
Yeah.
Right? They have their own language. They, have their own, you know what I mean? And I get it, right? I mean, here they are, their jobs are some of the most important on the planet, and they put their lives on the line consistently. Right. And if you're an outsider, then you're an outsider. That's just all there is to it. Right. I was talking to a chaplain out of North Carolina, and he said it took him 3 years. He was a chaplain at the police station there. It took him 3 years before they would ever even talk to him.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? And and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it's impressive when you find somebody who does love Jesus, that is in the occupation, that is able to minister in the way that they will receive it. Right.
Yeah.
It's not, we're so bad about putting blankets on everything, right?
Right.
There's a blanket way to minister to people. There's a blanket way to, we're so bad about that. And that's not the way life works.
Yeah.
There's not. And so kudos to you, man. Kudos to you. And so tell us about just your relationship with your wife and your children. It sounds like you guys have got a phenomenal relationship, right? In spite of everything that you do, right? Which is a lot. And I thought I was a busy guy. And how do you keep that at the center of what you do, right? Taking care of your wife and your children and being there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So one of the things that is helpful is my wife is extremely independent. So she is able to tackle all the problems at the house. So that is helpful as far as like the physical needs goes. Because, when I'm home, I'm fixing this, fixing that. I rarely call a repair guy for something unless I absolutely have to. Lots of YouTubes and lots of phone calls to buddies, but
yes.
But man, is one of the biggest ways. If my wife was here, is just one of the ways that she feels loved is just by being involved. And I think maybe that might be. So being involved, because if I'm involved, I know where the kids are going, what time they got to be there, who their friends are, which friends are good, which friends are meh, and knowing all that stuff, man, that's the kind of support that the family needs, and the kids need, how did that math test go? How did that, how'd your friend date go? That time you hung out with your friends, how'd that go? Why were you sad about this? Why were you sad about that? And I think just being present for your kids and for your wife, it's not a magic formula, it's just being there and knowing the details. That's for us. That's how it works. And that way you can know when people are in the troughs or when they're in the highs, and just, helping out, making sure. So we do a lot of family dinners, and we're not forcing them, we're not having to force the family dinners. It's just kind of natural for us now. We probably had to force it in the beginning. but now it's just something that we do. We don't even eat out that much, but that's mainly because everything's gotten so ridiculously expensive.
Yes.
I mean, Chick-fil-A costs $70 now. That's too much, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially
I understand.
you got 8 pounds.
Yeah. I was glad when they started moving out.
So we do a lot of home cooked meals, which means that, you know, we eat at the table, and so we get lots of good conversations there. We'll play cards, which often leads to different conversations. So being present is easy and hard at the same time. It's not a difficult process. It's a very simple process, but it's hard because it does take focus. It does take,
Right, requires something of you.
it requires something of you. And so a lot of times, man, at 2 or 3 o'clock, I'm going in and I'm going to lay down for 30 minutes just to recharge, get my mind right again. And then I go back out, and I try to do that every day, actually. Even just laying there and just resting your eyes for a second, let you get rejuvenated a little bit so you can keep on rolling. So man, yeah, that's, I don't know. For me, that's how I pour into the family. That's how I support them. And then, if I had to, so again, kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier, as far as spiritual leadership goes, that's why whenever you're like, hey man, I want to have you on this podcast, I'm like, oh bro, you're calling the wrong guy, man. Cause yes, you know, that is a goal of mine, but am I failing at it? 100%. Like, I'm not doing amazing at that. Because are we doing a devotional? My wife's been asking me to read this book with my son for months now, you know, and it just keeps falling off the list, you know. But am I showing him how to live life and how to show love and how to show compassion and, you know, how to be engaged? Yes. Man, one of the reasons I learned that is my father-in-law. So, my wife's dad, so he's 100% Lebanese. Both of his parents, he was born and raised in Lubbock. So he's a West Texas guy. But both of his parents were born in Lebanon and moved here in, I forget what year, but anyway, long time ago. And so he, you know, they have that big Greek style family, you know, and my wife's grandma would call me when Kim was sick, and she's like, honey, listen to me. I want you to go buy some ginger root, and I want you to put it in her tea, and it's going to make her better. And so, you know, so that's, and so that guy, his name is Larry Amon, and man, he will. There's not a phone call that I talk with him all the time. He's one of my best friends. There's not a phone call that he doesn't say, Clay, man, what do you need? Do you need anything? I'm like, no, man, I'm good. I appreciate it. But he calls his daughter, you know, he lives in California. We live in Texas. He calls his daughter 5 or 6 times a week. He always knows what's going on. He wants to be involved. He wants to know all the details. And I learned that from him, you know, and so I'm like, man, I want to be, so I emulate his behaviors. So I've had good examples in my life to show me what it looks like to be involved in the family and supportive of the family. Well,
I think that you are closer to being spot on than you think you are. Right?
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate it.
You know, you know, one, when I speak about leadership, right? People oftentimes put a stereotype on it, right? You hold some type of a title, like you hold some type of, you know, something like that. And really that's the furthest from the truth, especially when it comes to the most important job that you have, which is raising, you know, the people in your house, you know, leading them to the feet of Jesus. And I think that people, especially men do not understand the importance of a dinner table.
I agree.
They do not. It is my favorite time. Now listen, I'm not as busy as you. But I stay pretty busy. Mine's just different. Mine's ministry, right? I have something
Right.
pretty much every night of the week. I work every day, every night of the week. I've got a podcast. I've got church service. I've got,
Right.
I sit on the pastor's council. I do a lot of stuff also.
Right.
And so the times whenever I'm at home, right, and we're able to sit at a dinner table, and we've done this for years now. My two oldest, they're moved out of the house and stuff. We've done this for, my wife and I will be married for 22 years this year.
Nice.
And so for probably at least 16, 17 years, we've done this. Sit at the dinner table, and I always ask them the same two questions. What'd you have for lunch today? And tell me something exciting.
Yeah.
Right? It's not, we don't, I've always tried to do Bible studies. I've always tried to do, they've never worked. We've always stayed so busy, right? We always have. But listen, there's something amazing happened last year, right? So my oldest, he turns 21. My second oldest turns 20 this year. And last September, I was able to share the stage with my second oldest son, right? We had, we called it the Day of Discipleship. And I don't know, there were 60 guys there or so. And we had 4 different speakers. And my son, Malachi, was one of them. And he blew it out of the water, right? Of course, nice. I'm dad, so I think he did. Of course. But at the end of it, we had this question and answer, right? And so I really want to encourage you with this because, and everybody listening, I've always tried to do Bible studies. They've never worked, right? Because we're always so stinking busy.
Yeah.
And so, but my thing, again, I go back to leadership, right? Every day. So this is a little backstory before I get to that. Every day I would get up early and I'd do a Bible study, and I would intentionally leave my Bible out where it had to be picked up every day, right?
Yeah.
Monday through Friday. Weekends I didn't. I slept in. We did stuff. Stuff like that. As often as we could. But every Monday through Friday, I intentionally, it was always set out. It was always picked up, and it was always right back out where it had to be picked up every day. Yeah. And so we're doing this thing. And at the end, there was this question and answer, right? And so there's 4 guys. My son's the second from the end, and I'm on this side. The microphone's down there at the very end. And somebody had asked about leading your children, right? Of course, Malachi's, he's 17, 18 years old this time. He's 18, I guess. And he gets the microphone. He said, obviously I don't have a lot to say about this. He said, but I can tell you what it looks like. Man, I get choked up every time it hits me.
I imagine.
Yeah. He's like, every day I see my dad's Bible out, right? Every day I knew what was important to him. Yeah. Right. That is leadership, right? Yeah. And I'm not just patting myself on the back, but people think, especially men in churches and stuff like that, we act like, like we just have to force our kids to do Bible studies. We have to do that. Right. I'm the kind of guy, I will do the absolute opposite if you try to force me to do anything in spite, right? It may be a character flaw, right? I have to keep that under the blood, but that's who I am. You tell me to do something, I won't do it. Right. In spite, you ask me to do something, I'll do anything you want. Right. I've always been that way. And so raising my children, I know what it looks like to be forced to do something. And I was like, I'll never force them to do anything because I don't want them to hate the Bible. I don't want them to despise Jesus because dad forced them to do something. Right. And so I was like, I will lead them there. Right. Yes, it sucked getting up early every morning. Right. And I still do. I still get up early every day. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. My Bible's still sitting out. Right. It still has to be picked up. Yeah. And it sucks at times, but they will know what is most important to dad. They will know, right? That's leadership. Spending time at a dinner table with them proves to them they are important. Right. Right. The conversations, the playing the cards, all that stuff, right? That is the most important thing that they will ever have. And that's leadership. Yeah. I read a post the other day that said the only people who will remember that you worked overtime is your children, right? If you ignore them, all that stuff, they will remember that, but they will also remember when you were there for them consistently, when you made time as often as you could for them
Yeah.
when you're intentional about it.
Yeah.
Man, that's intentionality is leadership.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good, man. Yeah. So one of the beautiful things about the fire department is you get to see it's a multi-generational place where people are real with each other, right? I mean, there are hardly in our station. I know it's stations all over the nation, but like ours specifically, there are no secrets at the station. Everybody knows what's going on. Like, oh man, you're off today. What's going on with you? You're in a bad mood. What's wrong with you? You need to pep up. And so you get to know each other at a deep level, and I love it because it's multi-generational. We have the young guys, we got the old guys, and everything in between. And so you get to watch people, and I've been there 19 years now, or coming up on 19 soon, and so you get to watch guys. You see that guy, he's working overtime all the time. This guy's running 3 businesses. This guy, da 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 da, and then they got a divorce. Well, this guy, he didn't work, blah, blah, blah. You just get to see all the different paths that people take,
Right.
the destruction that it leads to, or the what's the opposite? Flourish, whatever, the good things that it leads to. And you can kind of be like, oh, okay, well, man, so we'll have times, like we'll go through right now, for instance, we're going through an era where I'm not home a lot, but then my friend Josh Widener, he's always laughing at me. He's like, bro, you are either always at work or you are never at work. It's like one of the two extremes, like, I don't know, man, it's just a roller coaster. That's the way it goes. So, that's, like I have made a commitment to myself a long time ago of, I need to work overtime. I need to make money. I need to go above and beyond. However, I need to make sure that I limit myself. So I'll keep an eye on myself, and my wife will help me like, hey, you need to cut back, and at first I'll get mad. I'll be like, oh, I thought we needed more money, but then she, I'm just joking. But, so yeah, it's one of those things that you just have to monitor. You always have to make sure that you have a goal in place and that you're self-monitoring that. Because if you just whore yourself out to always working, it's going to destroy the home. And it's because you just you're not plugged in. If you're not watering that plant, it's dying. Now you can go stints, but when you're back, you've got to be present.
That's right.
That's
a good way to put that. Yeah.
What's that?
That's a good way to put that. There are seasons of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things for me is making sure when I'm home, it's like a frame of mind. And so we rarely watch TV. However, we are always watching a movie. Like a movie for me is different because it's a story that starts and a story that ends, and it's an experience that we get to watch together. We love showing them 80s and 90s movies. That's one of our more 90s, whatever. But we don't just mindlessly turn on the TV to watch the trash that's on there, because it's all horrible anyway.
Yeah.
So that a lot of times that will just cause the dead space to happen. And then that dead space gets filled with, boredom leads to creativity, and that dead space does get filled with a relationship. So, I got off in a rabbit hole and lost my train of thought. So we'll just move on.
It's okay. You broke up there for a moment. So,
well, perfect. That's a good time then.
That's funny. Yeah. So yeah, man, and that's phenomenal that you are intentional about those types of things. You know what I mean? Because it is, man. I mean, and we've all done it, right? We all go through seasons where you work all the time, right? I mean, we've all been there. Whether it's because the work needs to be done, because you need money, because you need whatever it is. The thing about it is to make sure that it's a season.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Make sure that it's not a lifestyle, right? And your children understand that. Your children understand seasons, right? They understand, hey, this is a season where dad's working a lot, or, dad's busy a lot, or whatever it is. But it's the intentionality of, hey, we're going to take you to all 50 states. Hey, we're going to, whatever that is. My intention is to pour into you, right? We're going to have you in church. We're going to have you, in a Christian school, when can be, and, pouring into them, I'm going to lead you there the best that I can.
Correct.
And that's, man, that's masculinity in a nutshell, right? It's not about the big muscles. It's not about sports. It's not about all that stuff. It's about surrendering to Jesus. Like true biblical masculinity is about surrendering to Jesus.
Right.
Okay, so how do I become more like Jesus, right? Because if we really want to look at masculinity, there's no better example than Jesus Christ. Right. Not only was he a man's man, he was, he was both loving, he was stern when he needed to be, right? He knew it's not like he was just a pushover. He was this, Jesus just loves everybody. Not that. Ask the Pharisees about that. You know what I'm saying? And ask people sitting in the temple when he was flipping over tables, and that's not the way he was. He always was, and. But at the same time, he knew when somebody he knew when to be tender and when somebody needed compassion. And I mean, we were talking about this last night at our first responder meeting. We were talking about forgiveness and stuff like that. We were talking about the way that Jesus handled people. Right? We act like, I had mentioned blankets. We act like there's blankets for everything. If this had, and I had mentioned the prostitute. Right? When the Pharisees brought the prostitute and he began to draw in the sand. Right? Yeah. Dry around in the sand. And then he's like whoever is without sin, throw the first stone.
Right.
Right. By law, he should have stoned her. Right. I mean, that was his law, but he knew what was going on. He knew when to have compassion. Right. Yeah. He knew when to be tender. And, and that's masculinity. Right. And here's the thing. None of us do great. Right. Thank God. And I mean this in the absolute most sincere way. Thank God for grace. Thank God for grace in my marriage. Thank God for grace, raising my children. Thank God for grace every day, right? Because the failures come often, right?
Yeah.
They do for me, right? As much as I strive to be a good husband, to be a good father, to be a good employee, to be, a good leader, to, all those things, I fail in every capacity often. Right. Yeah. Say the wrong things. I put my foot in my mouth. I lose my temper. Fill in the blank, whatever it is. But God consistently shows grace, right? Because it's not about being perfect. It's about striving.
Yeah.
Right? It's about striving.
Yeah.
And man, Clay, this has been a great conversation, man. You really may be like the most interesting man alive. And
and one thing I wanted to touch on also is, so my wife, I think another thing that's important is capitalizing on strengths of other people, right? So I'm not going to try to ramrod something that I'm weak at. So my wife, she is an amazing teacher. So she can be sitting there, we can be out at a park, we can be doing whatever, and she can start teaching a grammar lesson or teaching because it's a relevant situation, whatever it is. I still don't understand grammar. I couldn't help them in the kindergarten grammar homework, but she can start, doing that. And so one of the things, she is also teaching scripture or school and Bible, whatever. And so she's in it frequently, and and helps them with their homework, and they have Bible homework, and so they're often having those conversations. So a lot of times she takes the lead on those conversations, and that's okay. Like I often have shame in those moments, but I have to remind myself it's okay. Like it's okay that she is the one teaching and I am the one that's not in that moment, right. But it often does feel a little bit weird, and it's something that you have to fight. I have to fight in my own head,
right.
Because it's like, oh man, for instance, like, I don't know what it is. I just have a hard time reading. I have a hard time studying. So Elmer Sims, he's one of the guys in Soder. He gave me a challenge. He did this for his kids, and I freaking loved it. So he bought a Bible. It was a study Bible, and he read through the Bible, and he made notes in the margins. It's kind of like he carried the Bible around for a year type deal. Mm-hmm. And so he would make notes, and then once he did that, then he copied it into another Bible for his other kid. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh man, that's a great idea. I'm on Genesis 2, and that was like a year ago.
Yeah.
I have all these grand ideas, but man, they just don't pan out all the time. So
yeah. No, I totally get that. You know what changed whenever I started studying the Bible? So again, understand I'm from Southeast Missouri, right? So I tell everybody the most interesting thing about me is I'm a community college dropout from Southeast Missouri, right? I don't even speak in complete sentences. I don't know why people listen to me. I don't know why God had me write a book. None of it makes sense, right? None of it makes sense. But along with being a community college dropout from Southeast Missouri, I'm the epitome of ADHD, and all these different things, right? My attention span is very low. And so when it comes to reading the Bible, I was consistently frustrated, right? I tell this story all the time, but I have a friend of mine now. He's working on his doctorate degree, right? Maybe one of the smartest people I know alive, right? And he told me, he said he reads a chapter out of the Old Testament, out of the New Testament, out of Proverbs, and out of Psalms every day.
Okay.
And I'm like, it would take me all day to read that, and then I would remember none of it.
Yeah.
Not a word, right?
It's like taking a puzzle piece and putting it in your pocket, like, okay, now what?
Exactly. So what changed whenever I started studying the Bible consistently is I had to teach myself how to study, right? Because I don't study like everybody else, because I don't learn like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
I do verses, right? Verses, like 1, 2, 3 verses. And I will digest them things every day. And sometimes I will take verses and I read them every day for a week, right? Okay. I won't memorize them. I can't memorize anything, right? But I could tell you what they mean, right? I tell people that all the time. Some people are really talented at, memorizing verses and stuff like that. I'm not that dude, right?
Yeah.
I'm chock full of... Yeah, I am glad they are, but I know what they mean, and it's in my heart, right? It's part of who I am. And so I consistently deal with guys, because all of us are the same way. The everyday guys, the hardworking, we're not PhD level, right? You know what I mean? We're hard workers. We're busy. We're trying to raise a family, right? We're trying to make money. We're trying to do all these different things. We're working 50, 60 hours a week, all this stuff, right? When do we have time to do this? Well, and the thing is that we put so much pressure on us to read so much. And it's like, wait a minute, it's never about quantity. It's about quality.
That's good. That is a good reminder, man.
It really is, and so I could read 3 verses in the morning and I can remember them, right? Maybe not memorize them, but I can remember them. Yeah. And then sometimes it catches my attention, and then I'm like, I want to know more about these 3 verses. Right. Because my favorite question in life, and it drove my parents nuts, right? My favorite question in life is why. Yeah. And it comes very much in handy whenever I read the Bible, because I'm like, why does it say it like that? Why did it say it there? Why does he use that word, right? And so it may take me a week to break down those 3 verses. Yeah. Who cares? Right. It doesn't matter. Right. Yeah. I am consistently in the Word of God. I am consistently in there, right? I'm consistently learning something, and that's all that matters. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's good, because I don't know about you, but I grew up I was born in the 80s. So, the 80s and 90s, I felt like it was all about, making sure you didn't watch rated R movies, make sure you didn't cuss, make sure you didn't, that was kind of the deal back then with Christianity. Mm-hmm. I feel like, I don't know, maybe not.
82, I get it.
Yeah. And so, man, I just think that's a hard feeling to get rid of, because even today, it's like, well, how do I get closer to God? Okay, well, you read the Bible, you go through your checklist, because that's what we were taught. And then it's like, no, man, it's frustrating. Yes. So I went and saw a biblical counselor one time, and I told him, I was like, hey, man, I'm just frustrated because God doesn't talk to me. I've prayed since I was a kid. I just want God. I want it to not be like something that could be coincidence. I want it to be undeniable that it was God talking to me. And he goes, all right, well, pick up that Bible right there. So I did. And he goes, pick a verse and read it to me. So I had read it to him, and he goes, God just spoke to you. And so I was like, well, okay, that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
That is him speaking to us, and he uses his word to speak to us. And I get that. And there are times like I'll go through eras, or seasons where I'm like, oh man, this is good. I can change, not change. I can live by this. I can focus on this. And I like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll go through seasons where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do. I want to encourage you in that, don't let it overwhelm you, just, with every guy that I talk to, right. And there are quite a few of them. We get overwhelmed. We just stop.
Yep.
That's what we do, right? I would rather just not do it than feel overwhelmed doing it, right? Yeah. I'd rather just not do it. It's because I equate it to losing, right? It's like I used to beat my kids in basketball all the time, even when they got up into like high school. But there was a point, right, when they become better than I was. I just stopped playing. The last time we played, I won, and I will play again. It's like wrestling or anything. I will win. Yeah. And then when I think that you can beat me, we just won't wrestle anymore.
Right. Yeah. That's good. I like it.
But that's the way we do, even with the Word of God, and even with those types of things. We feel overwhelmed. We feel like we're losing, and so we just don't. Yeah. It's like, wait a minute, God never put that kind of pressure on us. That's all man-made.
Yeah, 100%.
All of it. And so, yeah, I do. I want to encourage you in that. But and you're right. You were talking about leaning on people's strengths. One thing I've done a lot of different positions as a leader, like even in like a natural sense. I managed restaurants for a long time. I was supervisor in a factory. I was my own boss for a while. One of the things that I learned about being a leader is not that you have to be the best at everything.
Correct.
Right. You just have to make sure everything gets done right.
Correct.
Right. So if somebody does it better than you, that's not a slap in your face.
Correct.
Right. That is you leading well, and that's even in the home. Right. There are things that my wife is better at than I am. Yeah. There are things that I'm better at than she is. And both of those are okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? That's leading in a family. She is your helpmate, right? Even now, that my kids are older and stuff. There are things that they are better at than I am. Yeah. And you allow them to excel in that, right? For example, my oldest is going to be a worship pastor, and 2020, we're talking 5 years ago, he decided he was going to teach himself how to play the guitar. Nice. I don't have a musical ability at all. I always say God never gave me any musical talent because I'd have tried to be a rock star, hands down. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
God knows it. He knows how to try to be a rock star. Anyways, so he picked up this guitar, and then now he's like leading hundreds of people in worship, and he just come back from El Salvador, and leading worship down there. He's doing all this, and he's singing, he's doing all these different things. I will at every moment try to make sure he excels at that, right? Whenever he started doing it, we try to encourage as much as possible. It's not, I shouldn't look at it as a slap in the face because he's better at it than I am. Right. That's his God-given talent. How do I help him excel at that? Right. We bought him guitars and, all this stuff, and, just trying to make sure that he's, he obviously has a God-given talent, right. And it's just amazing, and so just to reiterate your point, that's what we do as leaders, right? Yeah. We help other people excel. That's what a leader does.
100%.
And so, Clay, this has been phenomenal, man. And I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And I know you have got a lot of stuff going on. We're coming up on an hour, and so I want to be time conscious. But maybe we could do it again sometime.
Yeah, man, I'd love to.
Yeah. And so, is there any closing remarks or anything like that you'd like to shout out to the guys who are listening?
So the group Soder that I've been involved with, man, they have been a life-changing group. It's a group of firefighters. And when you're at the station, like you said, it's an often, very masculine, just everyone's a tough guy. And what's awesome about this group is it's a group of firefighters and doctors, and they live in the same exact worlds, and we can come and we can get together and we can just be real with each other, and everybody gets where each other's coming from. Everyone understands the frustration with society and the frustrations with, the different patients you work with and blah, 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 all the things. Mm-hmm. And they're able to still walk with you in a manner that loves Jesus. And so that's not something you get very often. So I'm super blessed to have that group. Super blessed to have my wife and the kids and my father-in-law, my parents. So yeah, man, I feel like I'm blessed, and I've gotten a lot of blessings, and I get to excel at the things I get to do. So
that's awesome. Clay, I appreciate you being on. For those of you who are listening, I want to consistently remind you that Jesus loves you, is for you. He wants to see you succeed. And if you have any questions, you can always email me, realmen@palaceofpraise.com. You can contact us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the good jazz. And as always, I want to end it in a prayer. Holy Spirit, teach us to be leaders of our homes, of our communities, and of our churches, and teach us to be godly, courageous men. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
You've been listening to Real Men Talk. If you'd like to get in touch with us, shoot us an email, realmen@palaceofpraise.com, or visit our website at realmenministries.us. You can also message us through social media. If you're a man age 16 and up and would like to be a part of the conversation, join us at the Palace of Praise every Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. If you don't have a home church, consider joining us for worship on Sundays at 10:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. Palace of Praise is located at 1400 Herschel Best Boulevard in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. New episodes of Real Men Talk drop every Thursday at 5 p.m. on all major podcast platforms. You can also find us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, X, and Facebook. Real Men Talk is a production of Real Men Studios in cooperation with Palace Media Services.